Welcome to another episode of Car Japan. In the past year now, we've had several subjects of Car Japan, from JDM, Forza Horizon 6, Tokyo Extreme Racer, Kaido Genkai, and I guess Screamer 2 if we count the aesthetics. But there are still more to come from the indie scene as well. I've been lucky enough to be provided with an early beta build of Asuka Redline, which is an upcoming indie racing game surrounding the idea of Japanese street racing, rallying, and a bit of official circuit racing. Now, since the game is mostly still in early development with much content inaccessible, this video will mostly serve as a way to provide feedback to the developers and showcase what the game has to offer as a point of introduction, with any possible potential it has in store for you, the regular viewers who might be interested in the game. In terms of visuals, the game is very similar to other indie titles like Art of Rally or Drive Rally, with their minimalist stylized environment, while the characters are done through the anime art style. They don't really have a 3D model, and hopefully it'll stay that way because it might end up clashing with the cars and the environment design. But I suppose first off, some of the visuals in the game might look weird because some of the UI elements are not aligned correctly for ultra-wide monitors. It's not a major issue, but certainly can be jarring for anyone running the game on select resolutions. And from what I've seen, it seems like they support steering wheel setups, so that's another Japanese racer you can potentially play with a sim setup, along with some neat options for camera settings to mimic that stiff Gran Turismo 4 and TXR 2025 camera placement, or use a very loose drift camera. The game starts off with a test exam around the so-called Kanto circuit, which is definitely not Tsukuba. The goal to reach a lap record of 50 seconds in a pre-tuned R32 Skyline. It's twitchy and arcadey, but also a bit understeery, so proper braking is important here, especially with how questionable the braking power can be. Granted, the first test is almost impossible to clear, which is to set up the events of the game as we get sent back to redo a year on this racing academy. So I guess this is a good point to talk about the setting. We're playing as Asuka Kasai, character in the title herself, and the goal is to graduate from the race academy named Girls Racing Academy of Competitive Excellence, or GRACE in short. Yes, this is a girls only driving school, so all the rivals are girls. But you can also battle against faceless male wanderers that you encounter throughout the game. There's not much in terms of characterization for now. Most are based on the wall of text in the rival profiles, which also contains information regarding Asuka's own personality. Despite the prologue, the game is not really focused on circuit racing. In fact, most of the time will be spent on mountain toge racing instead, with the main map of this demo being Mount Haruna or Akina for some of you drifters out there. Although the weirder part is Asuka having no cars owned despite us just doing the supposedly final exam. So off we go to pick a starter car in the dealership. The options range between a front-wheel drive Peugeot, the MB variant MX-5, and the AE86, before being sent back to Asuka's room. This is our base of operations where we can pass the time, choose to enter racetracks, read some mail, or browse the online shop for parts. Check the dealership again for whenever they stock up on new cars. Look at trophies from rivals, go to the tuning garage, watch some replays, and reread some of the manga scenes unlocked from the story progression, though this one is unavailable in the demo. Now, depending on what you do here, it can result in passing the day. Obviously, sleeping is the one way to do it, but going to the racetracks will also do it. Depending on the time of day, certain features will be locked out while others open to utilize. For example, during daytime, the only races we can do in the courses are time attack and drift events in specific sections, labeled as TA and CA events. The goal for time attack is obviously to beat the target time, while drift events are all about reaching the target score. For time attack, we get the choice between doing whichever section of the track between the upper half, lower half, or the full course of Haruna, and the options for going downhill or uphill. As for drift events though, it's entirely dictated by the day of the week which sections are available, though bizarrely there are no full courses, and Friday sets it up as a randomized section only. Also, traffic will be present during this time of day, which adds a layer of randomization to your runs. Now, if we move on to the nighttime events, you can still do some time trials and drift events just without the traffic now that the road is closed for public use, but the main thing for this section is the rival battles. For now though, there's only the other academy students to battle, each with their own criteria which will either demand us to beat the person before them, beat a time trial record, or achieve a total amount of drift score, and also by filling up their envy bar by racing them multiple times. Sometimes random events can also show up during the week, introducing us to special races like the tests around Tsukuba with preset cars, or having to help our schoolmates with an opponent in other rally-inspired courses. If it hasn't been obvious, or if you don't know about it yet, this game is very heavily inspired by the TXR Drift spin-offs. The day and night cycle system is very similar, down to the features both will make available, but there are some differences. For example, SP battles here are done with regeneration rules, so if there's no damage taken, after a while it will refill back up to 100% again. This does make it so that the rival battles has to be done in a precise manner. You can't outright kill them unless you can perform well for a long period of time and capitalize from their mistakes. This also avoids the issue of losing a race when finishing first just because opponent has more SP at the end, turning it into a standard racing rules when both drivers are close. Also, since upgrade purchases are done via online stores, you have to skip the next day to get the product after purchasing at night, and the tuning garage is closed, so you'll have to skip the daytime again if you need to tune the car or switch out parts. While we're here, we can talk about the game's economy and upgrade system. For the most part, upgrades are based on parts spread between the engine, transmission, chassis, and aspiration or turbos. There's also engine swaps as an extra, but that's way above our league for now. They're all done through online shopping from the laptop, which features 5 different brands for each part. According to the devs though, this is done to mimic the part compatibility system of TXR Drift 2, which is rather jarring. I guess for the purpose of making community buzz around this mechanic, it could work, but just like with TXR Drift 2, that's going to be a rather short buzz because once people find the objectively best brand combination for each part, that's pretty much it. People are just going to follow that one combination until someday someone finds an even better combination somehow. There are some twists to this, like the random sales that could pop up each day, so sometimes in the process of saving some cash, you might want to sacrifice the compatibility. That being said, the current price scaling of these parts can be rather over the top. Like getting the full engine upgrade set on the lowest quality tier alone is pretty much going to cost you the same amount of money as buying a brand new car in the dealership. As I've mentioned before though, purchasing the parts requires delivery time unless you're willing to foot the bill for a one-day delivery. It's usually just the next day if purchased during the daytime, or the second daytime after purchasing at night. They don't really notify this, so we just have to check manually from the tuning garage option. In this room we have a couple of options to run dyno tests, equip and tune performance parts, or visually customize the cars with body kits that may look a bit unfitting, though for the unfitting part you just need to buy suspension and then you can adjust it to however you like. But you may have noticed the laptop is not here, so unfortunately there will be a lot of back and forth between the tuning garage and back to Asuka's room. It's a bit annoying and inconvenient, especially since you have to check the car parts manually to check which upgrades are needed. The fact that you can't really buy anything from the tuning garage makes it tedious with too many fades to black just to go back and forth between the laptop and the tuning process. Once certain performance parts are equipped, only then can we actually do some fine tuning to squeeze a bit of extra performance out of them. Maybe even do some tests around the circuits to test it out, although it wouldn't be that effective of a metric if I have to be honest, since you know it's a toge racer, so elevation plays a major part into the car performance and challenge. Some cars will definitely run better than others, just from the starter alone. The A86 performs better than the Peugeot or MX-5 based on some tests we've done in regular use cases. But since all of those cars are naturally aspirated, they all suffer a lot on uphill races, making a lot of the grind in the early stages way too reliant on downhill battles. It's the same kind of issue with any cars in TXRD2, but since this game's rival battles features randomized section select, it makes constantly restarting to get a downhill race far too important. Unfortunately, most of the upgrades are not enough to really push these cars into a viable state, especially with how insane the rivals can zoom in the straight sections, so it's just better to save up the cash for a better car. Most of the cars in this game are not licensed, as is the usual with indie titles, but the cars are modeled to be pretty accurate with the art style in mind, featuring Japanese, American, and European cars, up to around 90 cars in total. So back to the dealership we go. The system seems to mainly rely on a randomized rotation that will switch out cars after some period, either a couple of days or a week. So it's kinda like a used car dealership system, but there are issues here as well. For one, there's only 3 options at all time. This is just way too little of an option at any given time, especially now that the devs have confirmed there to be around 90 cars in total. Also, a slight side note, the devs did confirm to me that they have a Yugo in this game.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
I'm definitely not biased from this point onwards. Overall, it ends up falling into that same pitfall that Gran Turismo PSP fell into with its rotating brand dealership. If there's a car you want specifically, then you're forced to grind non-stop without progressing the day. The closest this is comparable to is with Test Drive Eve of Destruction's Junkyard system, but even that game still features at least 5 different vehicles at all time. That's without mentioning the exploit to instantly rotate the car list. Neither Gran Turismo 4 or TXR Drift 2 have that little of a used car selection in the rotation, and both of those games still have the fixed dealerships to deal with specific wants outside of the rare occasions like the 1Via or Salady that are actually some proper rare cars. You can redraw a selection, but it's only available on a limited amount by beating specific rivals, which is not that good of an alternative if I have to be honest. It just ends up relying on luck once again. At that point, Asuka might as well just become a complete bum and sleep for months to wait for the car to pop up in the dealerships, assuming the cash is prepared. The majority of races and events will provide some form of cash rewards. At the very least, losing but still crossing the finish line will provide some amount of cash, albeit very low. Winning time trials and drift events should give out more, around 10,000 in cash. The most unique one out of the options only happens on Saturday nights called the Gauntlet. You can't really challenge the usual rivals or enter the TA or CA battles. Instead, entering the Haruna course immediately puts on the Gauntlet. Beat as many opponents back to back to stack up the cash reward or lose it all from a single loss. So it's basically gambling with randomness again, which for the most part is fine, until the named rivals from the academy pop up and it becomes a really hard fight. While the rival battles are often determined by their scaling difficulty and an aura system based on driving clean. But if I have to be very honest, it's a rather contradictory system when the AI does this. When the stars align, these rival battles are easily some of the best content in the game just from the intense battles they can provide. I get the reason why lore-wise, since most of the rivals in Asuka are students in this racing academy, so driving clean is encouraged, but the AI's behavior is conflicting hard with the established reasoning. So maybe time trials can work, right? Well no, because for whatever reason the target time gets replaced by your previous clear record. So if you actually try hard the first time around, it's generally near possible to get that extra cash again until you just upgrade the car, making it better to intentionally gimp the run to get the lowest amount of time difference. Unfortunately, this game also features part deterioration. They're mainly based on how you drive and the upgrades you have installed. So obviously you'd want to drive clean to lose less money in the process, right? Well, maybe not. When doing drift events, it's one of the fastest ways to kill your tires. Mixed with the rotating track selection for these CA events, any day it's time for the lower half of Haruna only results in faster tire deterioration, making it something to completely avoid unless you have an addiction to paying repair bills. The system is the biggest limiter in the Gauntlet race as they still count throughout the event, so if the hard opponents haven't kicked in, then the degradation will force you to stop while you're ahead. When each win also provides a flat 10,000 cash reward, it kinda makes it rather questionable when put next to regular rival battles, which also allows the ability to do quick repairs for tires and brakes. And for that specifically, with this AI behavior, there's the underlying problem of reward difference between losing and winning. Even if it ends up destroying the tires and brakes, the difference between losing cleanly and winning dirty is far too wide. Keep driving clean and cross the finish line as a loser, and that's only 5,000 cash to spend on the repairs. It's even worse if you lose by losing all SP from being left behind. But win by being a dirty driver. Punt them to the fence, shove them to the wall, and that's at least 10,000 to spend, with a very tiny bit of aura bonus on top. The only time it's not worth driving dirty is when the part deterioration has gone critical. The moment any of the parts breaks mid-race, it's just over. The race is cancelled as a loss, and now you're stuck with a repair bill. Additionally, if the game detects you have no money for repairs anymore, it just instantly gives you this game over screen with no alternatives. It just straight up erases the save file. Makes me really appreciate the Yakuza and Night Runners a bit more if I have to be honest. And this is extra weird because, well, I have upgrade parts that I could uninstall and sell for cash, yet the game just throws the entire save file into the incinerator without providing an option. I'm not sure if this is an oversight or a bug, but even without that, I feel like the punishment of losing the whole progress is way too steep. In a game this grindy already, I just hope there's some kind of second win system prepared for later down the line in future betas and full release, because unless the economy and part degradation system is improved, this will be the one aspect that turns people off. Though the best part of the economy system is the random events that can be triggered, especially the ones coming from the academy exams or official team tests. These usually provide a pretty big sum of cash, and the best part is they are usually done using a lone preset car or just a simple one lap time attack around Tsukuba, so it's a pretty big income for almost no degradation. For the less serious issues, there are just the ones that slightly bother me. There's the character dialogue pop-up mid-race that can be way too frequent and repeat the same messages. Them being blocky manga-style text boxes makes them stand out a bit too much. The manga masking tape filter that happens when getting into collisions can be a bit too sensitive with the triggers, to the point where hitting curbs in Tsukuba can be enough to make it randomly flash on the screen. And some trees are positioned a bit too low on the course. They usually just obscure the corner, which can hide traffic during daytime events. The game is pretty rough. There's a lot of edges that need to be sharpened, but if you've seen the top right of the video, you'll probably notice that it's still the 0.10 version of the game, so it's still way in the early phases. There are still things that remain inaccessible, like the weather reports and having both rain or snow on tracks, along with the many planned ideas like the extra amount of rivals, including rivals unaffiliated with the academy or wanderers. A couple of upgrade parts are still untunable and more tracks or courses to deal with a public open beta later down the line in October. I just hope by then things shown in this early beta test can be ironed out, and this might sound a bit harsh with the criticism, but it's mainly because of how much potential is there. It's been over 2 decades since the last TXR Drift spin-off, so having an indie title finally step in to fill that shoe is a potential I'd rather not have squandered. For most of you watching, I'd simply direct your attention towards their Steam page for any future news, including the upcoming public beta test, or joining their Discord server, which I will leave a link in the description down below. The more feedback we can give later should help with the game's development. And with that, I simply wish the developers all the best of luck with the development process. I'll be definitely talking about this game again in the near future. Until then though, I wish you all a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.